But what we want to appeal to Bank of Zambia is to ensure that there is a smooth flow of finances from Bank of Zambia to little banks like NatSave, which is in Chavuma.
The 10th Bank of Zambia seminar represented a strategic initiative to empower lawmakers with knowledge and tools necessary for effective governance in the economic sphere. The tour of the Victoria Falls Power Station was a key highlight, providing members of parliament with first-hand experience of the country's energy infrastructure.
Did you know that you can still watch your favorite shows from anywhere, anytime? Yes! Just download the StarTime's own app from Google Play or Apple Store, then register. You can link your DTT or DTH decoder to up to 3 devices by entering your smart card number and the last 6 digits of your decoder serial number. Then voila! You're good to go. You can also pay for your subscription, change your preferred bouquet and other self-services on the app. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Topstar. Enjoy digital life.
You don't need to suffer from load shedding anymore. Liveltech is here to save the day. Imagine this. You're in the middle of an important task and boom, power cut. Frustrating, right? Well, not anymore. Introducing Liveltech, your go-to for advanced energy storage solutions. With Liveltech, you can store electricity and use it whenever you need it. Homes, schools, businesses, Liveltech powers them all. Our commitment to quality is unmatched, backed by a 10-year warranty. Picture this: happy families, productive businesses, and uninterrupted power supply. That's the Liveltech promise. So, why worry about power cuts? Choose Liveltech and embrace a future of energy independence. Contact us today to learn more. Liveltech, your trusted solar experts.
GoTV has something free for every customer. Because there's a new way to enjoy your favorite entertainment at no extra cost. You can now take your TV with you wherever you go. Whatever you're doing. Whenever you want. Even on the go. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Make sure your GoTV subscription is up to date. Download the new GoTV Stream app from your app store and sign into your GoTV account to get going. Watch on your TV, laptop, tablet, or phone. Watch TV anywhere with GoTV Stream.
Afternoon, today 17th October 2024. Thank you so much for joining us on Parliament Television as we wait for live proceedings at 14:30 hours to be on live commentary this afternoon. My name is Matimba Mkua.
Good afternoon, viewers. My name is Joe Muyunda Akachama, and we are joined by our 2 sign language interpreters, Chola Kauma and Jason Manda. Time now to look at the business which was considered on the floor of the House yesterday, 16th October 2024. So, Madam Speaker did make some announcements, and in the first announcement, Madam First Deputy Speaker recognized the presence in the public gallery of visitors from citizens of democratic governance in Lusaka district. And Madam First Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the National Assembly of Zambia, did warmly welcome the visitors to the National Assembly of Zambia.
In the second announcement, Madam First Deputy Speaker recognized the presence in the public gallery of teachers and pupils from Shuttle Private School Limited in Lusaka district. And so Madam First Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the National Assembly of Zambia, warmly welcomed the guests to the National Assembly.
Madam First Deputy Speaker also recognized the presence in the Speaker's gallery of honorable members and staff from Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya, Congo, and South Sudan. Madam First Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the National Assembly of Zambia, did warmly welcome the visitors to the National Assembly of Zambia.
After those three announcements by Madam First Deputy Speaker, 3 urgent matters without notice were raised under Standing Order 142, and the first one did come from Nakonde Member of Parliament, Mr. Lucas Simumba, and this was on the subject matter on an alleged video that was circulating showing pupils protesting the high cost of living in the country, and so this matter was inadmissible.
And of course, the second one did come from Mr. Taulo Chewe, who is a Luvanseshi constituency member of Parliament, on the subject matter on the measures being taken to avert a further loss of life following an increase in the number of road traffic accidents, and this particular matter was not admitted.
The last matter came from Chitambo Member of Parliament, Mr. Remember Mutale. This was on when the patient diagnosed with Mpox in Chitambo district on the 10th of October 2024 will be repatriated to Tanzania, and so this matter was equally inadmissible. After those 3 matters, the House went on to consider questions for oral answer number 33 to 35 under Standing Order 80.
Yes, indeed. So being a Wednesday yesterday, we had 2 private members of motion, and the first one did come from Mr. Christopher Kangombe, who is a Kamfisa constituency member of Parliament, and I did move a motion urging the government to revise the mining regulations to provide for large-scale mining companies to produce at least 50% of electricity needed for their production. And this motion rather was negatived.
After that, Kanchivia, Member of Parliament, Mr. Sunday Chanda, standing in his place, sought leave of the House to defer the consideration of the motion to a later date. This was titled Promote Countrywide Breeding of Niloticus tilapia, that in order to increase fish production, this House urges the government to promote the countrywide breeding of Niloticus tilapia. And so when a question was put, leave was granted, and it was agreed to. This means that this motion was deferred to a later date. And so the House adjourned yesterday accordingly at 18:07 hours. And so this is business that was considered on the floor of the House yesterday, Wednesday, 16th October 2024. Just now, we shift our attention and we look at today's order paper.
Yes, indeed. So the outlook of today's order paper, which is 17th October 2024, is as follows. We expect, actually we have 10 questions of ordinary nature. These are questions which fall under the Standing Order 80, questions of ordinary in nature. And we will also expect announcements, if there will be any, urgent matters without notice, if there will be any.
And so just now we look at the details of the questions that are expected to be considered on the floor of the House today. We expect question number 36 to come from Luponsonshi, Member of Parliament, Mr. Emmanuel Musonda, and he's directing his question to the Vice President. He wants to find out a question in 4 parts. How many civil servants countrywide were retired in the national interest by the Public Service Management Division from August 2016 to August 2021. In part B of the question, he wants to find out which government institution had the most affected employees and how many appeals were received as of March 2024. And in the D part of the question, he wants to find out, following the appeals, how many cases were upheld and rescinded.
So we have a question 37, which is coming from Kanyama, Member of Parliament, Mr. Monte Chinkuli. Is directed this question to the Minister of Finance and National Planning. He wants to find out when the government will pay terminal benefits to the 12 former employees of the Zambia Pork Products Limited, whose employment was terminated in 2001 following the privatization of the company.
Kanchivia, Member of Parliament, Mr. Sunday Chanda, is expected to ask question number 38. and he's directing his question to the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. He wants to find out a question in 3 parts. When the construction of Chikakala Bridge in Kanchiwia Parliamentary Constituency will be completed, what has caused the delay in completing the project, and what the cost of the outstanding works is.
So Mr. Wesley Kolara, who is Lufuvu Constituency Member of Parliament, has also a question, which is question 39, and he's directed his question to the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. He wants to find out what measures the government is taking to permanently resolve the perennial flooding problem during the rain season in Lusaka district.
We expect Masaiti, Member of Parliament, Mr. Michael Katambo, to ask question number 40, and he's directing his question to the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources. He wants to find out when the National Land Titling Program commenced. In part B of the question, he wants to find out how many title deeds under the program had been issued from inception to April 2024, and whether there are any plans to extend the program to all the 156 parliamentary constituencies, and if there are no such plans, why? And in part E of the question, the member of Masaiti wants to find out whether there are any plans to revise the titling fees so as to make them affordable.
So question 41 is coming from Mr. Kalie Mandandi, who is a Sioma Constituency Member of Parliament. He is directed his question to the Minister of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development. He wants to find out whether the government has any plans to rehabilitate Nangweshi Government Guest House in Sioma District, and in B, if so, when the plans will be implemented. In C, what the estimated cost of the rehabilitation is, and D, what the estimated time frame for the completion of the project is.
Question number 42 is expected to come from Lukasha, Member of Parliament, Mr. George Chisanga, and he's directing his question to the Minister of Education. He wants to find out why the construction of Ntupa University in Lukasha Parliamentary Constituency has stalled. In part B of the question, he wants to find out when the works will resume. In part C of the question, he wants to find out what the estimated cost of the project is. In part D of the question, the Member of Parliament for Lukasha wants to find out what the time frame for the completion of the project is, and whether the government will maintain the same contractor for the remaining works.
So we have a question 43, which is coming from Mr. Christopher Kangombe, who is Kamfisa Member of Parliament. And Matimba, right now we cross over to the chamber. As we can see, Madam Speaker's procession making its way into the chamber.
Honorable Members of Parliament, Mr. Speaker.
Tendency of Zambia, proud and free, land of work and joy in unity, victors in the struggle for our rights. We want freedom's fight, oh, and strong and free. Africa is our own motherland, fashioned with and blessed by those who blend. Let us all happy people join as one, brother. ready to go. Bless our great Zambia, Zambia, Zambia. Remain we stand under the flag of our land. Zambia, rest to thee, oh one, strong and free.
Prayer. Almighty God, who in your infinite wisdom and providential goodness has appointed the office of leaders and parliament for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to consider with your abundant favor us your servants, whom you've been pleased to call to the performance of such important responsibilities in this land. Let your blessings descend upon us here in Parliament assembled, and grant that we may, as in your presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and effective as a manner to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country, and of those whose interest you've committed to our church. Amen.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for still being with us on Parliament television. The bells are ringing. The quorum hasn't yet been constituted. It is a requirement that 1/3 of members of Parliament must be present in the House for any business to transact. And so once the quorum has been formed, we expect business of the House to begin. And today, Joe, on the order paper, we have 10 questions for oral answer under Standing Order 80, questions that are expected to be considered on the floor of the House. We expect question number 44 to come from Mbabala, Member of Parliament, Mr. Joseph Musanje, and he's directing his question to the Minister of Health. He wants to find out when the government will replace the non-functional mortuary unit at Macha Mission Hospital in Mbabala Parliamentary Constituency. We also expect question number 45 to come from Pika, Member of Parliament, Mr. Francis Kapyanga. He's directing his question to the Minister of Finance and National Planning. He wants to find out a question in two parts. Joe, maybe you can give us the details of the questions.
Yes, indeed, Matimba. So in A, the Member of Parliament wants to find out whether the government is aware that the decision by the Zambia Public Procurement Authority to request all contractors to bid for Constituency Development Fund CDF contracts on the EGP platform is disadvantaging local contractors who are domiciled within each constituency, as they can no longer be prioritized in acquiring CDF contracts as per presidential directive. And in B, the Member of Parliament wants to find out the measures which have been taken to ensure that contractors that are domiciled within each constituency are prioritized in awarding of CDF contracts.
And so bells are ringing. It is a requirement that 1/3 of members of Parliament must be present in the House for any business to transact, and the quorum hasn't yet been formed. And so as bells are ringing, it's calling on members so that the quorum is formed, and so that we expect business of the House to begin. We expect another question to come from Kamfinsa Member of Parliament, Mr. Christopher Kangombe, and he's directing his question to the Minister of Finance and National Planning. He wants to find out a question in three parts. How much revenue in taxes was raised from the mining sector in 2022 to 2023? How the revenue was used to improve the performance of the Zambian kwacha during the same period, and what measures the government has put in place to earn more foreign exchange from other sectors of the economy.
Yes, indeed. So in case you've just joined us, this is Parliament Television, the only station that is dedicated to bringing Parliament closer to you. Just like my colleague has mentioned, to say we have 10 questions. These are questions of ordinary nature, which fall under Standing Order 80. So question 36 is expected to come from Mr. Emmanuel Msonda, who is a Lupososhi Member of Parliament. He is directed his question to the Vice President. He wants to find out in A, how many civil servants countrywide were retired in national interest by the Public Service Management Division from August 2016 to August 2021. In B, which government institution had the most affected employees? And C, how many appeals were received as of March 2024? And D, following the appeals, how many cases were upheld and rescinded? And AE, what measures have been taken to prevent such occurrences in future?
We expect another question to come from Lukasha Member of Parliament, Mr. George Chisanga, and he's expected to ask question number 42. He's directing his question to the Minister of Education. He wants to find out why the construction of Antupa University in Lukasha Parliamentary Constituency has stalled, when the works will resume, what the estimated cost of the project is, and what the time frame for the completion of the project is. And in part E of the question, the Member of Parliament for Lukasha wants to find out whether the government will maintain the same contractor for the remaining works.
Mr. Karie Mandandi is a Sioma Member of Parliament. He is also directed this question to the Minister of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development. He wants to find out in A, whether the government has any plans to rehabilitate Nangwesha government government guest house in Sioma district. In B, if so, when the plans will be implemented, and C, what the estimated cost of rehabilitation is. D, what the estimated time frame for the completion of the project is, and E, if there are no such plans, why?
And so bells are still ringing. It is a requirement that 1/3 of members of Parliament must be present for any business to transact. And so once the quorum has been constituted, we expect business of the House to begin. We expect Masaiti Member of Parliament, Mr. Michael Katambo, to ask question number 40, and he's directing his question to the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources. He wants to find out when the National Land Titling Program commenced, and how many title deeds under the program had been issued from inception to April 2024, and whether there are any plans to extend the program to all the 156 parliamentary constituencies, and if there are no such plans, why, and whether there are any plans to revise the titling fees so as to make them affordable.
So we urge you to follow the proceedings either on Parliament TV, Parliament Radio, and of course our social media platforms such as the National Assembly Facebook page. If you haven't yet liked the page, please do so in order for you to follow the proceedings here. So we continue with questions, Matimba. So we also expect Mr. Sande Chanda Kanchivia, Member of Parliament, to ask the Minister of
Honorable members, I've got an announcement to make. Honorable members, I wish to recognize the presence in the public gallery of pupils and teachers from Mapalo Hope School in Lusaka District. On behalf of the National Assembly of Zambia, I warmly welcome our visitors in our midst. I thank you. Urgent matters without notice. The Honourable Member for Nakonde.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. The matter I wish to raise is directed at the Minister of Energy. Mr. Speaker, you can recall that there was a presidential directive that no any health institution should be load-shedded. I don't know why the minister is not complying with this directive. In Nakonde, Mr. Speaker, each and every day, our health institutions like that of the Ulongo Main Hospital, District Hospital, is always load-shedded. This, Mr. Speaker, has contributed to the fact that even when the family loses their loved ones, they are forced to bury the second day, the following day. And you know the economic challenges that this government has put us in. Mr. Speaker, there is a lot of...
Honourable Member, let me guide you. Yesterday, a similar matter was raised, heavily debated on the floor of the House. However, you're privileged to put in a question, and it will be dealt with. Thank you. Next, the Honourable Member for Rumezi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my matter is directed at the Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, of late this country has witnessed one citizen who others are calling a businessman, but as a matter of fact is a member of the current ruling party UPND, his name being Moses Kalonde. Is ever at East Park Mall, targeting prominent personalities. Mr. Speaker, this is a man that has been reporting all politicians, members of parliament, members of the bench, the judges, on either seditious practices or misconduct. One person, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member, may you take your seat? Let me guide. You are aware that this House has got rules, and we don't debate private individuals who can defend themselves. Our rules are quite clear. So find other avenues other than bringing that matter on the floor of the House. We may proceed. The Honourable Member for Katanshi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My matter is directed to the Minister of Finance and National Planning. Mr. Speaker, this Honourable House has the responsibility of appropriating the budget, and one of the main components of the budget is the revenues that should be announced by the government, in this case the Minister of Finance, in terms of the resources that will be spent so that the lifeblood of our economy continues to function, as well as goods and services. Mr. Speaker, there is a screaming headline today that the government has not been able to recover close to a billion kwacha of revenue, non-tax revenue, which, if not made available, means government will not be able to properly execute its 2024 budget. But what is worrying, Mr. Speaker, is that those resources were supposed to be in Control 99 so that the Minister of Finance can spend those resources from the various governments who have been holding on to these resources. My concern, Mr. Speaker, is that we are entitled to know what are the immediate measures the government will take or put in place to ensure that these resources are available for the budget to be executed and for it to be able to carry out the responsibilities it was meant to. And so with that in mind, Mr. Speaker, I was seeking your indulgence from you as to what are the immediate steps government is going to take. That report was made available to the Minister on the 30th of June, and it's 3 months on. The government has not yet acted. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The question is very important, but you can put in an urgent question and it will be addressed. We make progress. Next, questions for oral answer under Standing Order 80. The Honorable Member for Luposonshi. The Honorable Member is not here, so the question elapses. Next. Next question, the Honorable Member for Kanyama.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is question 37.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Honourable Member for Kanyama, Honourable Chinkoli, asked the following question. When will the government pay terminal benefits to the 12 former employees of the Zambia Pork Products Limited, whose employment was terminated in 2001 following the privatization of the company? The response, Mr. Speaker, the claim of outstanding terminal benefits to the 12 employees from Zambia Pork Products Limited, as submitted by Honorable Chinkoli, is well noted by the Treasury. The House may wish to note that the referenced claim is from 23 years ago. We have reviewed our records at the Treasury and wish to report that we have not established any record of an outstanding claim to have 12 former Zambia Pork Products Limited employees. Mr. Speaker, therefore, wish to request if the Honourable Member can furnish us with more details to enable the Treasury do the necessary review and follow up. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Supplementary questions, the Honourable Member for Kanyama.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for Finance. The guidance is well taken care of, and will revert back to you. I thank you.
The Honourable Member for Katanshi.
Honourable Minister, just for the sake of our people listening to this program, ideally when privatization takes place, I'm just trying to find out from you, when privatization takes place and the transactions are done, obviously now there's a private person who or private entity takes over a government company. The benefits for individuals who used to work there, who is responsible to pay them? Just for the people listening out there, in terms of roughly the process how it should be. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honorable. There is no one formula of dealing with the benefits of former employees. For example, if the company had been sold, it will now depend on the sale agreement. Did the sale agreement say that the new owner takes over the land? If that was the case, then of course the new owner becomes responsible. In other cases, it may have been that the sale agreement says the new owner, you are exonerated from all employee liabilities. This institution or that institution or government takes over, in which case the institution that is cited to be responsible henceforth becomes responsible. There are other cases where a parastatal may have gone under liquidation. In cases like that, where the company was liquidated, it becomes the responsibility of the liquidation manager to pay. Obviously, the liquidation manager will depend on selling whatever assets are remaining, and that's the money that becomes available to pay the former employees. Finally, of course, if the former employee, in spite of what I've said, was a contributor to a pension scheme that still remains viable, then there's nothing to stop that former employee to claim their rights from that pension arrangement. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you. Next question. The Honorable Member for Kanchiwia. The Honorable Member for Kanchiwia. The Honorable Member is not here, so the question elapses. Next question, the Honorable Member for Lufuvu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The question as it is on the order paper. Thank you. Question 39.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Member of Parliament for Lufuvu. Mr. Kolala is asking the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development what measures the government is taking to permanently resolve the perennial flooding problem during the rain season in the Lusaka district. Mr. Speaker, in response to the question raised by a colleague, Mr. Kolala, I wish to inform him and the August House the following. The government is implementing and taking the following measures to resolve the perennial flooding problem during the rain season in Lusaka City. A, develop a 500-meter stormwater drainages around the Arcades area from Arcades to Katima Mulilo Road. B, to develop a 4-kilometer stormwater drainage along the Kalushawalia Road in Kanyama. C, to develop a 4.5-kilometer stormwater drainage along the Lady Diana area in Kanyama. D, developing a 400-meter stormwater drainage on the part of the 7070 road in Kanyama constituency. Mr. Speaker, the members of the House may also wish to know that the stormwater drainage works in Kanyama are being undertaken under the Squatter Settlement and Upgrading Program. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary questions? The Honourable Member for Lufu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Minister, are you assuring us that those measures the government is taking now will show the difference when it comes to floods in Lusaka as the rain season comes? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
I'm certain beyond reasonable doubt that we are going to see an improvement in the draining system that successive governments have ignored over the past 60 years, Mr. Speaker. Just to give the colleagues some comfort, I'm going to give a detail of what work has actually happened this far. At Arcade Drainage, a company called CowG Limited has been contracted to construct a drainage, and so far the cost of this work is 16.4 million kwacha. The project commenced in July this year and has a duration period of 7 months. We have had slight challenges with funding, but I'm glad to say that as of 2 days ago, we received money from the Ministry of Finance, and what is left is actually to now join the drainage from Cosmic Lodge, which is just around here, and Arcades, which will wash into Katima onward to the Ngwerere River. So very soon you'll see that we'll cut the greatest road to provide for that drainage and the interlink. What has caused the delay to complete that work is simply because we have been working with ZESCO as well as Lusaka Water and Storage System to share with us their water pipe network so that the excavation does not disturb that. And similarly, we have been also waiting to get a report from ZESCO to show us their underground cabling so that we do not cause any disturbance during the excavation. At Lady Diana and Kalushawalia drainages, I wish to let you know that the whole target length of 4.5 and 4 kilometers respectively has already commenced with rock blasting of the whole targeted strength, 100% concrete lining of the base and 26% side walls has been done. The installation of culverts on these two drainages have also been done, and the backfilling is on course. At the 7070 road, Mr. Speaker, the section of 400 meters only is also been excavated, and concrete lining of the excavated drain is happening right now. And with this detail that I've given, it therefore must be envisaged that we'll see a lot of improvement. These are just but a few that we have started in the most critical areas that we have started working on, and the journey of a million miles starts with one step. We have taken this giant step to make sure that we try and control the water draining in Lusaka City. I want to assure you that more work will be done in this regard, and we are quite certain that by the time when posterity comes to judge us, will be known as a government that dealt with a long-standing problem in 3 years after we took office.
The Honourable Member for Kabwata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Minister, I want to appreciate the program that government has set up, the Cash for Work. We have seen some of the drainages being unblocked, especially in my constituency. But however, the answer that or the response that you've given is mainly centered on the Kanyama constituency, and yet the flooding or the question that was asked speaks about Lusaka district. Kabwata constituency is one of the constituencies that is ever hit in terms of flooding. We have notorious places like Kamwala South, where you can't even walk during the rainy season. I wanted you also to explain to the people of Kabwata so that they can understand what measures you intend to put up in place so that the flooding in Kabwata constituency is also minimized like the way you've done in Kanyama constituency? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you for that question, Honorable colleague. I want you to know that we were using the Maslow's law of needs. Kanyama stands as an unplanned settlement that has been overwhelmed due to the influx of our citizens who have gone to live there, whereas Kawata is a planned settlement. And because it's a planned settlement, Kawata has got enough drainage infrastructure that has suffered blockage, which does not exist in Kanyama, because in Kanyama there was simply none. And Kawata, which has experienced drainage, has come as a result of two major things. One, it is the indiscriminate disposal of rubbish in the drainage, including plastic. Two, it is because of what used to happen before that we are trying to reverse now, that of not respecting planning and building authority from the local councils. In Kawata, Honorable Member, you recall last year when the President came to Kawata, we found that there were wall fences that were built around drainages, thereby creating backlashes back into the people's homes. As a way to resolve that, we began the process of giving notice to demolish that which should not have been in places where they are at this point in time. Again, our citizens came and said, these are the devil's cousins, they are now breaking people's walls. A clear example I can give you, not just in Kawata, in Lusaka Central. Some people gave out a road and created plots and put a wall fence on the drainage in mass media here. When we broke that house, again we were called the devil's cousin. This problem is a huge problem, and I want to take advantage of this particular question to say to our citizens, please get planning and development permission from the council. And we will not shy away from breaking your properties if you continue doing business as it were before. Because the results of indiscriminately building walls and disposing garbage in drainages is too ghastly to contemplate. When flooding begins, the chain reaction is too much. We get cholera, we get epidemics that are transferred through waterborne diseases. And so each time we try to correct these things, it must be borne in mind that we are trying to circumvent a disaster. And the disaster that I'm speaking about at this moment is exactly what we went through last year. Part of the reason why cholera last year hit is exactly what we are talking about. So this is the reason why we have concentrated on Kawata. Next we are going to go to George Compound. Next we are going to go into Kamwala and also Mandevu, which are more or less unplanned settlements. And so Kawata is also priority, but I want you to understand, Member of Parliament for Kawata, that these other locations are in more dire need for immediate corrective measure than Kawata will ever be. Finally, you know that this government, as a result of the drought response plan, and courtesy of this House, the Minister of Finance came to ask for a budget variation to provide for people to do public works. That is the silver lining in the dark cloud that we are using to unblock these same drainages. I'm sure you are seeing people, women, men, boys and girls who are working every day to unblock drainages and do public works in order to circumvent, once again, communicable diseases. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lubasenshi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. The suffering of the people of Kanyama is the same as the good people of Lubasenshi. Now, my question to you, Honourable Minister, looking at looking at the situation of Kanyama in this case, it's almost everywhere in terms of the responsible of throwing the waste products. Now, you indicated that the money was released yesterday and the rain season is about to commence. Are you able to consider the multi-sector approach to speed up the process so that the situation that people have been experiencing where blockage is concerned this time around before the rain season is advanced can able to work on? In this case, I'm considering engaging ZNS, engaging other people to come on board quickly to try and support that contractor that you have talked about, looking at the time that we have remained with. I submit.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
I'm slightly at sea from the last bit of the Honorable Member of Parliament for Lupososhi's question when he said the time remaining. I'm not sure the world is coming to an end anytime soon. And I also said that a journey of 1,000,000 miles starts with one step. We began this step of correcting what successive governments from 1964, or maybe to be fair, from the 70s when the urban drift became rampant up to now. The MMD, the PF, they ignored these things. Okay? And I'm not also certain when the member says the suffering of the people in Kanyama is the same as the suffering people of Lupososhi. That to me is like comparing oranges and lemons or apples, because there is no way under the sun you can compare the squalor that is in Kanyama here, the squalor that is at George Compound, to the fresh air that the people of Lupososhi continue to enjoy. There's no contamination that you can call alarming in Lupososhi, not even in Mazabuka where I come from. Bigger town as it is, you cannot compare Lupososhi to what goes on in Kanyama. For all you care, maybe the population of Kanyama alone, not just registered voters, the population of Kanyama may be 10 times bigger than the entire population of Lupososhi as a district. So it would be unfair to compare the challenge that we are suffering. In Lupososhi, for instance, I would like to know how many cases of cholera they've recorded for my colleague and friend to compare Lupososhi and Kanyama and say the suffering of the people of Lupososhi. It is good to be heard in the constituency that you are fighting for us, but please fight battles that are worthy to fight. This particular issue is sitting in the realm of urban and regional planning. And I want to take advantage once again of this question to indicate that these upcoming towns, the developing towns, please respect the regional urban planning law that exists, because 50 years from today, we will be like Kanyama. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Kanyama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And allow me to take this opportunity to thank the government for what it's doing in Kanyama, something that has never been thought of being done in Kanyama. As you may be aware, or I may wish to take to inform you that Kanyama has been given funds into upgrading it, looking at the drainage system that is in there. I can attest the fact that one drainage is being worked on, like the Minister has explained. That is the main drainage, which is along Karushabwaria Road. However, I just want to find out from the Minister if at all we have already identified a contractor to work on the Ledana drainage, which is so problematic in the sense that it will manage to carry water that settles in the Kanyama itself, starting from Chineka into Kanyama down into 70. So I just want to find out if we have identified the contractor to work on those roads, those drainages. I thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Member of Parliament. To be very frank with you, you've caught me on the back foot because I am very far away from contractors myself. I know I get reports on my desks, and I will have to check for you if a contractor has actually been identified in that regard for the scope of work that you are describing. And I invite you to come to my office the way you always do. And for fear of giving a wrong answer, I am not certain whether or not how far we have gone to take the water to the areas in Chinika that you are describing. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Magoye.
Much, Mr. Speaker and the Honorable Minister of Local Government. I want to thank you most sincerely for the works that you are doing in Kanyama, but I want to find out what is happening on the Tabombeki Road, on the canal that is carrying water, which seems to be from the sewerage. What measures is the government putting in place to ensure that at least that situation is corrected? Because the ADO that is coming out of that area is really bad. Not only ADO, but the danger that it may pose to the people around it. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Member of Parliament for Magoye, for that question. Fortunately, I went to inspect the source of the effluent that you are talking about. It is on Nangwenya Road, just as you cross the road towards University on the right-hand side. However, I must say this falls under the realm of my colleague, the Minister of Water, because he's the one who is responsible for that. Fortunately, also, we are one cabinet, and I'm equal to the task to answer you. That particular effluent that comes on the drainage on Tabombeki Road that takes it to arcades is extremely offensive. The smell of it is extremely offensive. At one point when the president was at Bonanza commissioning something, I got a call from the proprietor of East Park. And that effluent was at its worst. So he told me, I can't get your colleague, Minister, can you come and see for yourself? And I did go to see for myself. What turned out to be the case was that the source of that is the University of Zambia. The source of that effluent is University of Zambia, Great East Road campus. And every so often, when they are pumping out, their sewer system, the pressure becomes too much, it starts to flow on top of that drainage into the stormwater drainage, and it becomes a river of fecal matter effluent going towards arcades. And I'm sure that even members of parliament from time to time, because that is most of where members reside, they know what I'm talking about, that the effluent is too much. Today, we had a meeting with the management of Arcades and East Park, ZESCO, as I answered in the first part A of this question, where we are trying to connect the drainage across the Great East Road. That matter came on the table for discussion. And what we agreed is that we must get the Ministry of Water, the University of Zambia management, Arcades, the Ministry of Local Government, to put our heads together to see how we can resolve that matter permanently. I thank you.
The Honorable Member for Nyimba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, still, I want us to correct the narrative created by the Member of Parliament for Kanyama coming from the Minister of Local Government. We have areas, not just Lusaka. I know the question is about Lusaka. And we have areas like Nyimba where vehicles cannot pass.
Honorable Member, the question is specific.
Okay, Mr. Speaker. The question to the Minister. The Minister, the money which you have released, is it practical, which the Minister of Finance has released, is it practically for Kanyama or Lusaka district? It's for the other contractors across this country, because Kanyama may take advantage of the same money and divert everything to Kanyama. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you very much, Honorable Member of Parliament, for Nyimba. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Finance does release money to line ministries via the NRFA periodically. For the particular subject at hand, I can confirm to you that the money for the urban renewal for Kanyama was released maybe 2 or 3 months ago. But and it was specific for the project that I've outlined in part of my answers. And so the question, if it's about other places, I'm afraid the target for this urban renewal for the avoiding of outbreak of cholera as we suffered last year is specific to Lusaka. I can also confirm to you that we had agreed as a ministry that we try to do all 3 compounds at one go. But because of budgetary constraints, we also now looked at which location required most urgent attention, and Kanyama was one of them. Like I said earlier on, our desire is that we should go to George Compound, Lilanda area, Mandevu, and then if resources permit, we start attacking these areas on a systematic basis. But for now, the money that was released was for the Kanyama Urban Renewal Project.
The Honorable Member for Lufu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Minister, I'm worried. You are, I might say you could be the first minister facilitating at least the drainages in Kanyama. But from the explanations, there's no proper plan on where the waters from Kanyama, when drained, will go. At least for arcades, we know there's where the drainage will throw the water. But Kanyama being on a flat land, we expected the full plan to see whether there's a dam created somewhere where the drained water will go. But there's no that, which might even make us speculate to say those drainages, when they are created, they'll just be filled with water and become a death trap to the people from that area. Is there a plan to see to read that water is drained and taken to where it's supposed to be taken? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Mr. Speaker, I get a feeling that maybe there is a leakage in the deliberations that we normally have in our interministerial committee meetings regarding this same problem. Indeed, this question was asked to my ministry, and it was asked by Her Honor the Vice President to say, so the Kalushawalia drainage, where is it going to spill the water? Won't there be a backlash? The Diana drainage, where will it fit? And we agreed that we are going to provide, as we get along, we are going to provide reservoirs of water, but that is not in the immediate term. It is in the mid-term, and the long-term plan is that, funds permitting, we should have big dams where water can be stored for use in times when, in arid times, in dry times. Thank you.
Next question, the Honorable Member for Masaiti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question 40.
By prior arrangement, the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs is the Acting Minister of Lands and Natural Resources. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Masaiti asked the following questions. A, when the National Land Titling Program commenced? B, how many title deeds under program had been issued from inception to April 2024? C, whether there are any plans to extend the program to all the 156 parliamentary constituencies. D, if there are no such plans, why? And E, whether there are any plans to revise the titling fees so as to make them affordable. Our response, Mr. Speaker, is as follows. A, Mr. Speaker, the National Land Titling Program commenced in September 2020. B, as at the end of April 2024, a total number of 113,470 title deeds were issued under National Land Titling Program. C, Mr. Speaker, yes, there are plans to extend the programs to all provinces, and only, I repeat, and only within state lands. D, Mr. Speaker, given the answer in C, question D falls off. E, Mr. Speaker, yes, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources has plans to propose the revision of titling fees so as to make them affordable. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The Honorable Member for Kafinsa.
Mr. Speaker, the response from the Honorable Acting Minister of Lands indicates that in the last 4 years, a number of titles have been processed, and obviously, this being a national program, the Acting Minister may be aware that we have cases in certain parts of the country, which includes Kamfinsa constituency in Kitwe, where you have individuals that paid Ministry of Lands under the old system to process their title. When the new system was commenced, we have a private entity that has been engaged by the ministry. I think the name must be Medici or something along those lines, which now is also requesting the same residents who are processing their title to pay again to do the same exercise which they've already paid for. So my follow-up question to the Acting Minister, what are you doing to address that particular complaint? The complaint that people already paid to process title, and because the ministry has engaged a private company to undertake survey works on its behalf, it is also requesting the same property owners to pay again for the same particular entity. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Acting Minister of Lands and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just want to state that I've taken note of the issues the Honourable Member of Parliament for Kafisa has raised. We'll take into account the issues and then revert over this matter.
The Honourable Member for Mukushi South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Minister, from the numbers that you have talked about, that the total number that you have mentioned, are they including Forest 27? And when are you going to demolish? Because I'm aware that some of the UPND members of parliament, they have also got houses in Forest 27.
Honorable member.
When are you going to demolish the houses
Honorable
for
member.
Forest 27? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Acting Minister of Lands and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know what he's trying to say. I want to offer you, I would like to offer you a substantial amount of money for you to go and demolish the house which you are trying to refer to. Yeah, you see? Mr. Speaker, we are aware of the challenges pertaining to the issuance of title deeds in the country, and we are trying everything possible to ensure that members of the public who would want to get title deeds get the title deeds. The process is slow, but we are doing everything possible to ensure that it's improved.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The Honorable Member for Masaiti.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Minister, you've had targets, like in 2023, you targeted 250,000 title deeds that you're supposed to issue. In 2024, 250,000 again. But you are failing to meet these targets. What measures are you putting in place in order for you to reach these targets? Like now, in the 2025, you've targeted 50. So how are you going to manage these targets? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Acting Minister of Lands and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to assure my colleague, the Honourable Member of Parliament for Masaiti, and the nation as a whole, that we are reviewing the issues of titling in this country. It's not just the members of the public who are being denied the right to own land. The government itself is failing to get revenue. That the issue is under consideration. Very soon we'll be able to announce what we intend to do. It will be a comprehensive program, not just titling, but also looking at issues of rates. Because you are aware, Mr. Speaker, that rates in this country are very high. And as a result of high rates, members of the public are not paying. So we are reviewing the whole process, and we'll come back and announce the processes we are taking.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The Honorable Member for Masaiti.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Minister, have you developed strategies within the ministry, say in percentage terms, of what you are supposed to allocate to women, youths, and the rest? I say so, Mr. Speaker, because there's need for us to know, since its inception as of April 2024, of how many in percentage terms the youths and the women who benefited from this titling program. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
The Acting Minister of Lands and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the question that has been raised by my colleague is a new question. If he would like us to provide an answer, let him submit a question and we'll respond appropriately.
Thank you. Next question, the Honorable Member for Sioma.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Question number 41.
The Honorable Minister of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Member for Sioma is asking the Minister of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development the following 5 questions. A, whether government has any plans to rehabilitate Nangweshi Government Guest House in Sioma District? B, if so, when the plans will be implemented? C, what the estimated cost of rehabilitation is? D, what the estimated time frame for the completion of the project is? And E, if there are no such plans, why? The answers are as follows, Mr. Speaker. A, the government has no immediate plans to rehabilitate Nangweshi Government Guest House in Sioma. B, the plans will be undertaken in the future once government is ready to undertake the project, such project. C, the estimated cost will be known once the project is approved and designs prepared and bill of quantities estimated. D, the estimated time frame will be known once a contractor has been procured for the project. And E, the Nangweshi Government Guest House in Sioma cannot be rehabilitated in its current state, as the structural integrity of the walls, roof, floor, and the foundation are weak. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Next question, the Honorable Member for Lukasha. The Honorable Member for Lukasha.
Apologies, Mr. Speaker. I was conferring with my colleague from Malole. The people of Lukasha asked me question number 4, Mr. Speaker. I'm grateful.
The Honorable Minister of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development is the Acting Minister of Education. The Acting Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honorable Member for Lukasha, Mr. Chisanga, is asking the Minister of Education the following 5 questions. A, why the construction of Tumpa University in Lukasha parliamentary constituency has stalled. B, when the works will resume. C, what the estimated cost of the project is. D, what the time frame for the completion of the project is. And the E, whether the government will maintain the same contractor for the remaining works. The answer is as follows, Mr. Speaker. A, the construction of Tumpa University in Lukasha parliamentary constituency has stalled because the financing agreement was cancelled due to physical constraints. The fiscal constraints the project was experiencing, and currently the government, through the Ministry of Education, is in the process of terminating the contract for the project. B, the works will resume when the new contract is signed and the funds are secured. C, the estimated cost of the project will be determined after a needs assessment is concluded and the new contract is signed, ensuring a transparent and accountable fiscal planning process. D, the actual time frame for the completion of the project will only be established once the needs assessment is concluded. However, the engineer's estimated completion period is within 36 months. And the E, the contractor to complete the remaining works will only be known once the process of re-engaging a new contractor is concluded. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Lukasha.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Minister, considering that the construction of Ntumpa University was a strategic response to climate change to ensure that we take advantage of the northern enclave in maximizing our agricultural potential, is the government not going to help the nation by prioritizing the procurement, the mobilization of resources so that we can complete this, considering that about $35 million was spent on the designs and mobilization? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Acting Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, and I thank the Honorable Member for the follow-up question. Maybe to give context to this particular question and project. The contract was for the design and build of FTJ, Chiluba University project in Mansa, and then Kasama Tumpa University, of course. And the estimated contract sum, which is, I think, total for the two universities, was $225 million. The consortium name for the contractor was China Energy Engineering Group, Hunan Electric Power Construction Company Limited. And so far, $33,750,000 was paid as advance payment. And the initial contract period was 104 weeks, and the contract date for that particular contract was 8th August 2017. Now, due to increasing cost of construction and materials and the depreciation of the kwacha against major currencies, contractors requested an upward price adjustment to their contracts after seeking legal guidance from the Attorney General. The Minister of Education was advised to cancel the contracts, as the proposed second price adjustment would surpass the 25% variation limit set by the Zambia Procurement Authority, ZPPA. Acting on this advice, the ministry moved forward with the contract cancellations, and the final accounts were prepared. The government remains committed to ensuring that these infrastructure projects are completed on time to meet the educational sector's need, including what the Honorable Member has mentioned in terms of the drive into agriculture, especially for Northern Province, which has conditions which are good for agriculture. The government is committed to addressing the gaps in higher education infrastructure. As part of this commitment, the government has resolved, and this is a clear policy, the government has resolved to construct a university in each province that currently lacks one. And Northern Province lacks one. I know Mchinga has certain facilities. So additionally, King Liwanika in Western Province, FTJ itself, and Tumpa universities will be completed under the same cabinet directive and policy which I've just mentioned now. The ministries of education, which are represented at a particular moment, the ministries of infrastructure, housing and urban development, which are also represented at the moment, and of course the Ministry of Finance, who collaboratively working on the necessary modalities to implement this plan. These efforts are aimed to expand access to higher education and strengthen the capacity of the education system in all provinces. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Kafinsa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm just paying attention to the question, to the answer that was provided by Honourable Milupi in response to the question by Honourable Tsanga regarding mobilization of resources. Considering the nature of the university, what it was supposed to achieve, do we have partners in the climate change agenda space that would be willing to provide resources to this particular project, and has government engaged such partners? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Acting Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Member for Kafinsa for that question. These projects, especially universities, we know that they're acutely needed in the places where they're supposed to be. in the provinces where there are no public universities, our young people have to trek to other places to seek higher education. Government is short of resources, as we keep mentioning on the floor of this House time and again. But at the same time, we engage and look for alternative means of funding. We also engage and look for cooperating partners who may be in a position to come and assist us. And thirdly, we look from within ourselves, the budgetary provision, where we can squeeze money. We do that to ensure that these facilities are put in place. I can assure you that with respect to the provinces where we do not have public universities, the government is actively looking for ways of facilitating this. As we have said here, we have mentioned there are 3 provinces, which is Luapula, which is northern, which is also western, but there are others also that do not have public universities, like the Eastern Province and so on and so forth. So all these will be taken as a group and seek resources for that. I think as the economy opens up, these matters will be included. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Shuangandu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I followed the comprehensive response from the Honourable Minister, which she has given in response to the question posed by the Lukasha MP. And in your response, you did state that one of the reasons why the project has been cancelled was the fact that there was a consideration to adjust the contract sum upwards by the developer. We would like to know, through you, Mr. Speaker, whether these negotiations were rocked and there was no room for further negotiation by government to ensure that this very important Tumpa University was implemented. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Acting Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Honourable Member for Shuangandu for the follow-up question. He's asking whether, on the basis of that adjustment, whether there was no more room for discussions. I think in my response I mentioned that when the extra costs were computed, resulting from the desire for the contractor, these extra resources amounted to a figure greater than 25% of the contract price. And the law is very specific that you cannot carry out a variation on a project if the variation is greater than 25%. So on the basis of that, the discussions came to an end. If the variation was within 25%, then government would have considered varying it, because it's within the figure allowed by law. Had we gone further to award a contract outside this, it would have been against the law, and the Auditor General would have picked it up, the Public Accounts Committee would have picked it up. Indeed, this very House would have picked it up. So that is the situation. I think the main thing now is let's see what needs to be done to ensure that these provinces also get universities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lukasha.
Thank you once again, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Minister, I just wanted to find out, considering the vastness of the piece of land which was allocated for this project, what efforts is government putting in place to ensure that this piece of land is secured, so that in the near future, when government decides to implement the completion of the project, you find the same size of land that was allocated by the traditional authorities? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Acting Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On matters like this, you see, we are asking for community responsibilities. I've been certainly to FTJ site. I know it's overgrown with vegetation and so on. But we ask that when this land is allocated for these very good projects that will enhance education in the various locations, that authorities, including indeed the office of the Member of Parliament, continue to monitor these sites to ensure that there is encroachment. The projects have not been cancelled. I think we have stated on the floor of this House time and again that these projects that were initiated, whether it was the previous administration or not, these were projects that will save our citizens. The New Dawn government has no plans to cancel these projects. It's a question of the provision of resources to ensure that these projects are embarked upon. So the local communities must be advised not to encroach on these projects or on these sites. So we expect local authorities, we expect the area chiefs who may have made the land available, we expect the areas of members of Parliament in those areas to help in ensuring that the sites are protected from encroachment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. On prior arrangement, the Honourable Member of Wengwa will ask on behalf of the Honourable Member from Mbabala, and question 44 has been brought forward to allow the Minister to attend very urgent matters. So the Honourable Member for Wengwa.
Honourable Mr. Speaker, thank you. Question 44.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I answer this question, allow me to pass condolences to Honorable Kambwiri, who lost two brothers in an accident. Further to that, the speculation that government didn't act in time. Well, Honorable Kambwiri was evacuated at government cost, not any relative to Lusaka. He's at Mainasoko. Secondly, I want also to clarify the issue of the CT scan, which was being reported to have been delivered to Russia. It was not a CT scan, it's an ultrasound machine, which was there speculating on the social media. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Honorable Musanje of Mbawala would like to find out from the Minister of Health when the government will replace the non-functional mortuary unit at Macha Mission Hospital in Mbawala parliamentary constituency. Mr. Speaker, the mortuary unit at Macha Mission Hospital was non-functional as it needed regassing. The unit has since been repaired and is functioning well. Mr. Speaker, government recognizes that this mortuary unit is too old and indeed requires replacement. In 2025, government will procure 30 mortuary units, and it is expected that Macha Mission Hospital will benefit out of this. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any supplementary question? None. We go back to question 43. The Honourable Member for Kafinsa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The people of Kafinsa have the great honor and privilege to ask question number 43.
The Honourable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honourable. The following three questions have been presented. A, how much revenue in taxes was raised from the mining sector in 2022 and 2023. B, how the revenue was used to improve the performance of the Zambian kwacha during the same period. And C, what measures the government has put in place to earn more foreign exchange from other sectors of the economy. The responses: in A, Mr. Speaker, government collected a total of 22.64 billion kwacha in the mining sector in 2022, comprising 12.2 billion from company tax and 10.4 from mineral royalty tax. In 2023, this decreased to 13.1 billion, with 5.4 billion collected from company tax and 7.7 billion from mineral royalty tax. This represented a decrease of 8.5 billion kwacha in revenue from the mining sector on year-to-year comparison. Mr. Speaker, at B, the revenues from the mines are received in US dollars, which in turn contribute to increase foreign exchange reserves in the country. The increase in the reserves helps to stabilize the foreign exchange market. At C, Mr. Speaker, government put in a number of measures to encourage exports, which has led to earning more foreign exchange from other sectors of the economy. Some of these measures include investment in agriculture production and value-added chain. Another example, government has also provided fiscal incentives such as tax reliefs to encourage investment in agriculture. Another example, government is also undertaking infrastructure development as well as maintaining and rehabilitating tourism sites in order to attract more tourists to the country. In addition, among the many projects being implemented include the Zambia Green Resilient and Transformational Tourism Development Project with a financing facility of $100 million from the World Bank. Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kafisa.
I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I was paying attention to the responses. Of course, the figures were not very clear, but I noticed from the first question, there was a reduction. In 2022, we got 22 billion from the mining sector in taxes. 2023, we only got 13 billion. And from your response, Minister, there was a reduction of 8.5 billion in terms of revenue from the mines. So my first follow-up question, Mr. Speaker, what do you attribute this loss of revenue or reduction in revenue from 2022 to 2023 of about 8.5 billion? Are you able to clarify so that maybe we are able to understand why we lost 8.5 billion in revenue? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Honourable. Mr. Speaker, it happens so often that economic circumstances change and the revenues can drop. And what happened in 2022 and 2023 is not the first time this has happened. For example, Mr. Speaker, between 2016 and 2017, a similar thing happened when revenue fell from 8.6 billion to 3.7 billion between 2016 and 2017. Similarly, between 2019 and 2020, there was another fall from 7.5 billion to 6.9 billion. So this happens from time to time, depending on circumstances. In the particular case that we are talking about, the revenue fell on account of two things. Number one, at the beginning of 2023, the mining companies reported that there had been excessive rain in their, I think, the new mining areas in the northwestern provinces, which are peat-based, and it took a lot of time for the water to be cleared. Time was lost. As a result, output of copper or copper production, mineral production, went down. Secondly, because of the fact that given what they say, given what the mining companies say, had been a hostile environment, no new developments and investments had been made for roughly about maybe a decade. Therefore, the quality of the ores had declined. The quality of the ores had declined, meaning that the amount of copper you could win out of a ton of ore was less than previously because there had been no extra investment made. Happy to say that the new investments have been made, and we look forward to increase revenues, rising revenues, starting maybe this year. Going forward, we should see more and more revenue coming in because the mining production will be expanding. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kankoyo.
I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's a fact that the mining sector, especially where I come from, Ufira Mupani, had seen serious production reduction from an average of 400 metric tons per day to as low as 180. But as we are speaking today, the mine is able to produce about 580 metric tons per day, meaning we're going to see more copper coming from that mine. Is there hope, Honorable Minister of Finance, that come 2025, going forward, the taxes from the mine will be increasing? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Mabeta is absolutely correct. Given the fact that Mopani, as he says, had dropped production because of what had transpired, KCM had also dropped production. Then Lomana and First Quantum had not reinvested, so ores were declining, meaning that production across was going down. This is what we are discussing here. If production is going down, obviously you do not expect revenues to increase. Everything else held constant. But with what has happened, now that Mopani is back on stream, strong, now that now that KCM is back, now that Lumana is expanding. Just about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, the President went to inaugurate the expansion through the super pit, meaning that in the next 3-4 years, production is going to double. Now that Kansanshi is also expanding, also going to double. Now that there is a new nickel mine, and now that there will be new mines opening in Mumbwa, Luanshi, and so forth, it means that production will be going up and the amount of revenue that we'll be collecting will be rising, rising, and rising. You cannot expect to collect much revenue or rising revenue when production is going down. The answer is to increase production, and this is what is happening. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The Honorable Member for Kantanshi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me just to add to what my colleague from Kankoyo was saying. Honorable Minister, for the first time, the people of Mupane Mine got production bonuses. We were hoping you won't tax them, and we hope going into the future you won't be taxing them so that they can enjoy these bonuses which they have been working hard for. Mr. Speaker, I want to draw the Finance Minister to number C, where he was talking about the various revenues that he was proposing. I didn't hear him talk about the issue that ZRA raised, where they were complaining that only 7 mines are contributing to the tax revenue. I was hoping that the minister would be a bit aggressive on this matter, because I believe that if the mining sector was truly contributing correctly to the revenues of this country, the levels of taxes that our people are currently being subjected to would drastically reduce. So I would like to hear from the minister, and maybe adding just one more example. Minister, as these mines are expanding, they are buying equipment from abroad costing millions of dollars. And these goods, when they come, they are consigned directly to the mine. And when the mine is paying those millions of dollars, there is no single tax they pay, because that money is immediately transferred to the banks where these companies are registered abroad. In terms of ZRA being aggressive and innovative, when are we going to see taxes being charged? Just like Zambians who, when they supply the mine, end up paying all sorts of taxes along the way, so that we can see some fairness being introduced. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Member for Katanshi is right. There's been reports from ZRA which shows that the number of companies holding mining licenses of various categories is much bigger than the number of mining companies paying taxes. So the question is, what is being done about that? There are 2 things. First of all, I think we have to recognize that the reason why these taxes dropped is that those who were already paying taxes were no longer able to pay the taxes they used to pay before, because production had gone down. Okay? This is why we have had this decline. And the answer to that is, we have said what we are observing already in Fulija, production going up. Now, there's the issue of those who have not been paying taxes. This is why I think the Minister of Mines came, and he has to come back to this House to establish that Minerals Commission, because it is best placed to be in a position to sniff around and be able to identify which of companies are operating around, because many of these companies we are talking about, the 2,000, are small things spread all over the place. Some are easy to find, others are not easy to find. So the first step is to sort out the institutional arrangements for identifying these people, track them down, then alert the taxman to say, there's a mine, there's a mine, there's somebody. So that process, I believe the Minister of Mines will be coming here so that we complete the task of establishing that Minerals Commission. That being said, I also want to say that clearly the big mining companies will still continue to dominate the industry because they are the ones who are heavily capitalized with a lot of expertise. So yes, we should get some more revenues from the small mining companies, and we will push very hard for that. But we should also recognize that many of these are very small, and we cannot really expect to get a lot out of them per mine. On the taxes, I want to say, Mr. Speaker, because sometimes there is a belief that Zambia is very lenient on taxation. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to let you know that even as we speak right now, if you look at a number of mining countries, and I urge colleagues, go and do some research, find out what the tax rate is in Chile, in Indonesia, Congo DRC, Namibia, US, Canada, Australia. Go and check for yourself. Don't rely on those casual statements that we sometimes tend to hear, and we all repeat and say Zambian taxation is too lenient. Go and check country by country and see whether in fact the taxes in those countries are more stringent compared to Zambia. Check for yourself. My answer is no. Zambia actually, we are one of those that tends to tax a little bit more compared to others, even now as we speak. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
The Honourable Member for Lundazi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving the people of Lundazi to make a follow-up question to the Minister of Finance. Honourable Minister, looking at how much money we get from these mines, is government going to continue offloading the dollars to cover the exchange rate? I submit, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you. Mr. Speaker, the biggest source of foreign exchange in Zambia still remains the mining sector. So clearly, when the sector is not bringing much of foreign currency into the country, as we saw in 2022, 2023, because of the reason that I gave, you saw the kind of pressure that we saw on the exchange rate. And we can similarly see what happens when the situation improves in terms of the earnings by the mining sector. I think we have all noticed that for the last 6 months, there's been stability in the exchange rate. That stability comes because, as I said earlier on, the earnings from the mines have begun to improve compared to the period that we are talking about. This is why we keep on encouraging more and more investment, because the more investment is made, the more the dollars will come, the more we are going to see this stability in the exchange rate. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
The Honourable Member for Chipiri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Minister, I just wanted to find out whether you have attached some officers from ZRI to monitor the activities of these mines, so that when they report to you you are able to compare and contrast of the report, because they might be cheating you or cheating the state, not you as an individual. Have you of that? I wanted to hear from you. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, that is the case. There's the exit formalities when trucks leave the mining area. There is also another exit formalities when the trucks leave the country. But having said that, of course, it doesn't end there. There are also times when there are random checks made with the machines at any point on the route to the borders. And of course, I also want to say that we have to remain vigilant, because like every other situation, you can't just rely on a story that's being told to you. We also have to verify. Having said that, I want to repeat my usual song. Many of us are always very concerned about how much revenue we are collecting, but very few of us talk about what are we doing to expand production. Okay? I don't hear a lot of this talk. I don't hear a lot of this debate. What are we doing as a country to expand production in mining and, of course, in everything else? Just to give you an example, as we speak right now, in the next 2-3 years, we believe there should be an investment of something like $10 billion in the mining sector in the next 2-3 years. About $10 billion or thereabout. That sounds great, and of course it's a big improvement from where we come from. But the other day I was just browsing through and I saw this figure for Chile. Between 2022 and 2030, the pipeline of projects, mining projects, is $69 billion. $69 billion. That's the pipeline that they have in Chile. Now, clearly, if your colleagues invest in that kind of money, $69 billion, and you're investing 10, yes, there's an improvement, but you cannot realistically expect to live as well as the Chileans, because there's more money going to industry. So, yes, let's make sure that taxes are collected, but equally very important, how do we encourage more investments into our country? Because for these countries, even mere exploration is a very big industry. Exploration itself is a very big industry that hires or employs a lot of people, that buys a lot of services. You can imagine if we had a budget of something like $1 billion just on exploration every year, how much money will come in the country. So this is the way to see this. This is the way to see the industry. Yes, let's make sure that they pay taxes, but there will even be more taxes paid if we encourage production to increase. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kafinsa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The last question of the three that I asked the Minister of Finance was on how best we can get the other sectors to contribute effectively to our revenue. Obviously, copper production, in terms of the figure for the last 14 years, Minister, you agree with me that last year we did 680,000 metric tons. We didn't manage to even get to 700,000 tons, which simply means that as we grow the mining sector, we also need to look to other sectors. And that is why I asked the last part of my question. My last part of my question was, how are we ensuring that other sectors contribute adequately to the revenue that we need so that our kwacha is able to perform better? I think I'll need a bit of clarification because I didn't get the response that you provided. You mentioned agriculture, you mentioned tourism, but I didn't get the actual strategies we are implementing in these particular sectors. That is my last follow-up question, Mr. Speaker. The other sectors, thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The key in all this is to encourage more and more investment in sectors that can earn us foreign currency. And mining is just one example of how that investment can create exports. You ask for specific examples of what is being done in other sectors. One example is that of agriculture. Mr. Speaker, the farming community now in this country, they've been crying out for years and years, we are underpaid, we are underpaid. So this government decided a year ago, or since coming to office, that the amount of money to be paid to our farmers must improve. Here we are, year in, year out, trying to stop farmers, trying to stop millers to sell in Congo DRC, for example, because they are smugglers. We all forget that, in fact, when you sell in Congo DRC, what comes back is dollars. Okay? What comes back is dollars. So we have a red market there in DRC for something as simple as agricultural products like maize. The trouble is that we are scared to sell into Congo DRC because the price there is higher. We are scared that, when I say we, I mean the whole of Zambia from the time of independence, 1964 to date. We are scared that since the Congolese are willing to pay more, and of course give us dollars, those of us who eat in Shima will say, maize is expensive, meal is expensive, because the millers, the farmers, are selling in Congo DRC. So this government has taken the view that let's pay the farmers better so that they produce more. That surplus that we are going to get, we send it across DRC and bring the dollars back. And I can assure you our farmers will be very happy. Because for the time being, we are basically, and when I say we, I mean the whole of Zambia from independence, we are making life hard for the farmers. The market says, bring your maize, bring your meal, we can give you dollars from Congo DRC. But we, the Zambians, are the ones holding back because we want to continue to eat cheap food at the expense of the farmers, at the expense of discouraging many of us who are here and the rest of the country to go out and grow and sell in Congo and other places. That is an easy win. Mr. Speaker, time in and again, on the floor of this House, we've spoken about the farming blocks, which will be places where we emulate what has happened in Nakambala there. That's basically what it is. Where you have industrial agriculture encouraged so that they can produce more and more, like the way Nakambala does. By the way, Nakambala exports sugar. Nakambala exports sugar. So what we are saying is that, why don't we have similar arrangements like Nakambala, called a farm block, where you have a co-venture in the name of Nakambala Sugar Estate, a processing facility, and also supported by outgrower schemes, so that as they produce, they sell to the co-venture, put into the processing facility. Because if we do that, agriculture is now going to be on the industrial scale, and to be able to export like the way Nakambala does. So these are some of the things that we are going to push very hard. Right now, colleagues, each time when we harvest 3-4 million tons of maize, we celebrate. Do you know how much Brazil produces in grain every year? 300 million tons. 300 million tons of grains that Brazil produces. Now, there's nothing to stop us from achieving the same results, provided we open up, encourage more investment to be done. If we do that, no one will talk about foreign exchange, no one will talk about unemployment, because there will be so much. So, for us, when we harvest 3, 4, 5 million, we celebrate. Yes, it is an improvement, but compare that with 300 million tons coming out of Brazil. Then you realize that we still have a lot more to do than what we are doing now. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
The Honourable Member for Shuangando.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've been following the Minister's response with keen interest. And I want to acknowledge that indeed our desire is to see realistic production in the mining sector. And I must say that I was a bit taken aback yesterday when I was listening to the responses to the motion that was moved by the Honourable MP for Kamfinsa. And of course, I think there was a bit of contradiction. The Honourable Minister responsible for energy did acknowledge that the motion that was moved was like opening an open door, because the essence of that motion was to speak to the enablers, speaking to the enablers that will
Honourable Member, you are supposed to ask supplementary questions. You are debating.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'm just acknowledging the Minister's responses so that I pose a question.
But
because you are saying we don't speak, us as members of who are supposed to help him, don't speak to the elements that will make the mining sector productive. That's what he was pushing to us, that it doesn't hear us talk about what is it. We are just talking about revenue coming from the mines. And that's why I was starting from there, Mr. Speaker. So, that said, Honourable Minister, your response to Part C of the Honourable Member's question, of course, gives comfort that maybe sooner than later we shall see some stability in the exchange rate of the dollar versus the kwacha, which has been dancing kalela to the dollar. In his response to Part C, he says part of the revenue collected from the mining sector is invested in the agriculture sector. And we agree with him that by exporting maize to Congo DRC, you gain forex. But if you have indeed invested, Mr. Speaker, I need protection.
Honourable Member for Shuangando, ask a supplementary question. You are debating. So
my question to the Honourable Minister is, if indeed, as he has assured this House that part of the revenue is being invested in the agriculture sector, why have we still maintained the same number of farmer input support program at 1,030,000 from 2021 to date? And you know that our farmers, given the environment, they are capable of producing enough for you to export to Congo DRC. I would like to know why the numbers remain static. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can you keep quiet? Mr. Speaker, this is unruliness. This is the House of Order.
Order. Honorable Member for Mwandi, order. The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the number of FISIP farmers, yes, it has been maintained from last year, which is to increase from a few years ago. But I also want to say that the amount in the budget has increased. I also want to say to you, Honorable, that there has been a cleanup. The e-voucher that is being introduced and other measures being introduced clearly show that many of the people who were being supported under FISIP were being supported unjustifiably. Unjustifiably because many of them were actually workers, public workers. Many of them were not qualified one way or another. Perhaps they were taking too much. So the system that is being introduced is forcing farmers to identify themselves, to be properly identified. When you say you are James with an NRC of this type, with a phone number of this type, can we collaborate those numbers or those, can we collaborate that data and ensure that you are the right person? And what we are seeing is that there are many there are many farmers who are not supposed to get that. So the numbers therefore were inflated. And as we clean up, we'll provide opportunities for those who are proper farmers to come on stream, because those who are not proper farmers, they'll be weeded out. Having said that, I also want to say, Mr. Speaker, that supporting farming is not just about government providing subsidies to farmers. That is part of it, yes. But the other component is that of government putting in place policy measures that attracts people with their own money. People don't depend on government money to farm. That's what we are talking about here. If you go to Nakambala again, to use that as an example, you have never heard Nakambala Estate coming here to say, give us subsidies. You have never heard them coming here to say, give us fertilizer, because they can buy their own fertilizer. You have not even heard those outgrower farmers coming to government to say, give us fertilizer or give us that, because they are doing viable farming, they can provide for themselves. So this is what we are talking about. Let's have more and more of these arrangements where you have farmers who know what they are doing, who are skillful, and therefore they can be able to organize their own money, organize their own fertilizers, organize their own marketing. That way, then the industry is going to grow. We cannot just think that supporting agriculture is always about the taxpayer giving money to farmers. No, it has to be broader than that. And this is what this government is trying to do, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. The Honorable Member from Pika.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Question number 45.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Kapianga asked the following questions. A, whether the government is aware that the decision by the Zambia Public Procurement Authority to request all contractors to bid for CDF on the EGP platform is disadvantaging local contractors that are domiciled within each constituency who can no longer be prioritized in acquiring CDF contracts as per presidential directives? And B, if so, what measures are being taken to ensure that contractors that are domiciled within each constituency are prioritized in the awarding of CDF contracts? The response: under A, Mr. Speaker, the House may wish to note that the EGP platform, in alignment with the Public Procurement Act and the regulations, serves as a tool for government institutions, including local authorities, to engage suppliers, contractors for various goods, works, and services. It is essential to note that the EGP system does not inherently disadvantage any supplier from participating in the procurement process. The CDF guidelines were developed in line with the Procurement Act and allow for reservation of procurement on the EGTP system. Any alleged hindrance to local contractors stems not from the EGP system, but from the lack of suppliers to follow the requirements on the EGP system. The requirements ensure that only local suppliers are considered. However, some local authorities have not been following these provisions. Under B, Mr. Speaker, there are programs that have been put in place to sensitize contractors that are domiciled in each constituencies due to lack of alignment of the statement of the requirements on the EGP system. The following are some of the programs. 1, ensuring that local authorities strictly adhere to the Public Procurement Act's reservation schemes, CDF guidelines, and presidential directives concerning the CDF project. This entails incorporating criteria that specify eligibility for local contractors and verifying that they are domiciled within the locality through documentation during a bid evaluation. 2, in collaboration with the Zambia Devolution Support Program under the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, 2,602 suppliers and contractors have been trained in 73 local authorities in the use of the EGP. 3, ZPPA has established a help desk to provide assistance. And 4, e-learning modules are available on the ZPPA website for additional guidance. Mr. Speaker, it is crucial to highlight that the mandatory use of the EGP system by procuring entities, as stipulated in Section 16 of the Public Procurement Act of 2020 and the ZPPA Amendment Act of 2023, will come into full effect in April 2024. All procuring entities are expected to transition to the EGP system by this deadline. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kankoyo.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, definitely the EGP has brought transparency in the manner in which procurement, especially for public services, are being done. However, when we are looking at startup businesses, my uncle in Kankoyo, who has very little knowledge about the modern internet way of doing business, is there an allowed amount of value which councils, especially through the CDF, can procure without using the CDF for the purpose of building capacities in our local suppliers? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Honorable for that. I have two comments or two responses to that. The first is that obviously, in terms of convenience, the EGP system is designed to be more convenient than the current system. It's just that when anything new starts, there's always that difficulty, and people sometimes hesitate to transition. I remember the time in the Ministry of Finance when these personal computers were just being introduced, and people were using spreadsheets to crunch out the numbers. There was one man of the old school who would insist that when the printout from the spreadsheet is done, he must use his calculator to check the numbers whether the computer was adding properly or not. So these are examples of people refusing to transit. Having said that, I think we are open. We are open to dialogue so that where there are genuine practical problems, we may discuss those. But in doing so, we should not discourage innovation from taking place. Okay? After all, even phones, these mobile phones, I know how many of us, on the first day when you received a phone, how many of us could operate a phone? We didn't know, isn't it? But we insisted on learning. Until today, we are able to operate more sophisticated phones. So let's not stop innovation, because then we'll fall behind. But if there are genuine problems, let's talk and see how we can resolve those. Thank you.
The Honorable Member from Pika.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity, and thank you, Honorable Minister, for the response. Honorable Minister, youths in Mpika constituents, particularly from Chiturika, Kamwanya, Tazara, have created the companies, and they would want to participate in CDF projects. However, the challenge of internet in most areas, because as you might be aware, constituencies such as Mpika are predominantly rural, and we have issues of internet connectivity. My question, therefore, is that would the ministry consider coming up with an amount that can, that can be contracted using a manual system so that everyone participates? And like now, every tender they publish, the contractors will come from outside the constituents, and the challenges we're having is that they're abandoning works, and we're having a problem tracing them from tracing them. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that is an example of what I said. Come, let's discuss, hear the specific problems, and see how we can overcome them. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Sulawesi East.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Minister, just a follow-up with what my colleague has said. For us from the rural areas, our constituencies, really we are in trouble with this EGP system. Because just for a small project that requires maybe repairs like my constituency office, something just less than 5,000, it has to be put on that platform. Then somebody from Livingston is the one who managed to get, just for a 5,000, has to travel from Livingston, go to Solwezi East Mushindamo district, just for a tender of 5,000. So you find that for almost 1 year plus, no repairs have been done. Mr. Speaker.
Order. As the time is 16:40 hours, I suspend business for 20 minutes for health break.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for still being with us on Parliament Television. Business of the House has been suspended for a 20-minute health break, and so we expect business of the House to resume at 17 hours. And at the time business was being suspended, the House was considering question number 45, which is coming from Speaker Member of Parliament, Mr. Francis Kapyanga, who directed this question to the Minister of Finance and National Planning, where he wanted to find out whether the government is aware that the decision by the Zambia Public Procurement Authority to request all contractors to bid for Constituency Development Fund CDF contracts on the EGP platform is disadvantaging local contractors who are domiciled within each constituency, as they can no longer be prioritized in acquiring CDF contracts as per presidential directive. And in part B of the question, he wanted to find out if so, what measures are being taken to ensure that contractors that are domiciled within each constituency are prioritized in the awarding of CDF contracts. And the Minister of Finance and National Planning has already answered these questions, and at the time business was being suspended on the floor of the House was Solwezi East Member of Parliament, Mr. Alex Katakwe, posing his question to the Minister of Finance and National Planning in line to this question. So we expect him to continue asking his question when business resumes at 17 hours.
Business did resume at 14:30 hours, and the second Deputy Speaker did make one announcement in which he recognized the presence in the public gallery of pupils and teachers from Mapalo Hope School in Lusaka district. And Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the National Assembly, did welcome the visitors to the National Assembly. So right now we take a break. We'll be back at 17 hours. Stay glued to Parliament Television, the station that brings Parliament closer to you.
You don't need to suffer from load shedding anymore. Liveltech is here to save the day. Imagine this. You're in the middle of an important task and boom, power cut. Frustrating, right? Well, not anymore. Introducing Liveltech, your go-to for advanced energy storage solutions. With Liveltech, you can store electricity and use it whenever you need it. Homes, schools, businesses, Liveltech powers them all. Our commitment to quality is unmatched, backed by a 10-year warranty. Picture this: happy families, productive businesses, and uninterrupted power supply. That's the Liveltech promise. So, why worry about power cuts? Choose Liveltech and embrace a future of energy independence. Contact us today to learn more. Liveltech, your trusted solar experts.